Apple just held WWDC for 2024 and announced some really exciting updates that are coming in iOS 18, iPadOS 18, and macOS Sequoia. So let's look at some of my favorite things that are coming and a couple of the strange updates that are also coming. Let's get into it.
Wow, that was so cool.
So first up, let's talk about iOS 18. I love building the perfect home screen. That means picking the background, picking the apps and icons and widgets and arranging them to be clean and minimal and to avoid as many distractions as possible. And Apple's doing some really cool updates here, allowing you to put icons and apps wherever you want. You can put widgets wherever you want, and this gets 2 big thumbs up from me. There's even new app icons for dark mode, which is pretty cool. I don't know if I'm going to use it or not, but we will see. But again, I give this 2 thumbs up. I'm not going to talk about tinting just yet. I'll save that for later in the video because that's a thing. The next thing that I'm really excited about in iOS 18 is the ability to schedule and send text messages later. There are so many times when I'm in a group chat or a family chat or with friends and I say, I'm going to text you that tomorrow. And then I don't, and I forget. And so this is a great way for me to schedule a text message the next day, whether that's sending a file or saying happy birthday or something like that. The last thing in iOS 18 that I'm super excited about is actually in iPadOS and macOS, and it's a native integration between Apple Reminders and Apple Calendar. They finally did it. Now you no longer have to jerry-rig and create all these integrations with shortcuts or third-party apps. It's just native, it's going to work, and it is going to be beautiful. Continuing on with the topic of things that Apple finally did, let's talk about iPadOS. There is now a calculator app, and it looks like a calculator app. But Apple completely blew it out of the park with Math Notes. You can access this inside of the calculator and inside of the note apps. In the demo, they showed that you can have an equation and get an answer right then and there, but you can also make live changes to the equation and see the answer change in real time. Pretty impressive. They even showed a couple of graphs being drawn and changing the variables and seeing how that affects the graph, which is just really impressive. If I had this in college when I was in Calc 2, I probably wouldn't have failed. Sorry, Mom. Speaking of the Notes app, there are 2 notable updates that I think are going to bring a lot more functionality into the Notes app. The first one is collapsible sections where you've got headlines, and the second is the ability to highlight text in different colors. It didn't really get any airtime during the keynote, but these are welcomed improvements to Apple Notes. Next, let's talk about macOS and the updates that I'm most excited about. And the first one has to be iPhone mirroring on your Mac. Now, I work at a desk on a MacBook for 40 plus hours a week, and I oftentimes will leave my iPhone and iPad in another room so that way I don't get distracted. But now with iPhone mirroring, I can leave them over there, but I can still access text messages and files and things like that I might need. I could see this being a huge benefit because I'm not going to have to get up and go grab my phone. I could also see it as a con though, because now I'm going to get all of those notifications for things that I'm intentionally trying not to get by leaving it in the other room. I could see myself disabling a lot of those notifications in the future. But where this becomes game changing is when they showed the demo of Final Cut Pro and an iPhone side by side on a MacBook. The fact that I can just drag and drop video files or photo files from my phone to Final Cut Pro and vice versa is just awesome. Now I know that this is just AirDrop with a couple extra steps removed, but it's really cool, and I know this is going to be a big time saver for me when I'm editing videos. The last thing that I'm really excited about in macOS Sequoia is the new default window tiling. Now, I love magnet and I love rectangle, and it's one of the first things I install on every single MacBook. So if this is good enough in the default macOS, unfortunately, I will probably be moving to that rather than having to download rectangle and magnet every single time. So those are the things that I'm most excited about in iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. But it wouldn't be a great YouTube video without having a couple of hot takes on the announcements. So starting with number one is app tinting. I am not completely sold on the idea of tinting all of my apps red or purple or blue. And I could actually see this as a problem for people who might have color blindness or other visual impairments. It just feels problematic, and it doesn't feel like the same clean UI that we've seen from Apple in the past. There are already so many great examples of creators and developers creating custom icon packs that are beautiful. I wish Apple had just created some kind of shortcut or proprietary file to use those instead. Number two is text message formatting and animations. Now, Apple has always had incredibly clean UI, and I felt like they kept things minimal and clean and useful. I feel like that's changed with the latest updates in messages. Now you've got text message formatting, you've got Gen emoji, and you've got all these extra additions that are starting to make the Messages app just feel a little bit more cluttered than I would prefer. It's starting to feel a little bit like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, which I just don't need, and I feel like most of the people who I know are not going to end up using those additional features. The third and final thing that I was a little bit bummed by is iPadOS as a whole. It's still crippling the latest iPad hardware. The latest iPad has an M4 chip and is far more powerful than my current Apple laptop. But the thing is, with iPadOS, you can't download desktop apps. You don't even have a full Finder or file management system. There's a handful of limitations that are really preventing the hardware from being used to its full capabilities. So I hope that in iOS 19 or maybe in iOS 20, we would see a full redesign that give more desktop level capabilities to the iPad. So those are my favorite things that were announced at WWDC 2024. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like or a subscribe. And if you've downloaded the latest betas, leave a comment down below on what your favorite feature is or what you're most looking forward to using this fall. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.